And the Bucs hope that this will be their first victory ever.
We have a great area, a growing area, in Tampa, St. Petersburg, Clearwater, Sarasota, Bradenton, Lakeland, and Winter Haven, and even Wachula. Over 2 million fans, and it's the fastest growing area in the United States.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, live from Tampa Stadium. For the first time ever in a regular season, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers enter the stadium with numbers in both the win and loss columns. The Buccaneers came onto the field to a wild standing ovation from the some 60,000-plus fans at Tampa Stadium. They did not introduce any players individually. The PA announcer said, "Ladies and gentlemen, your Tampa Bay Buccaneers."
Welcome to San Diego, California. Super Bowl 37. It is Tampa Bay versus the Oakland Raiders.
Third down, 18. Dropping Gannon, looking Gannon. Throws up the middle. It's intercepted at the 40. Derek Brooks 30. Brooks to the 25, 20. Derek Brooks all the way. There it is. The dagger's in. We're going to win the Super Bowl.
Tom Brady signing with the Tampa Bay Bucs tomorrow. Holy hell.
Everyone always says, why the Bucs, man? Why do you choose the Bucs? And it was a no-brainer.
Brady has all kinds of time. Throws toward the end zone. It is a caught ball. Touchdown, Tampa Bay. Mike Evans. 8 seconds, 7 seconds. Brady to throw. Throws a deep pass downfield. Got Scotty Miller in the open. Makes the catch. Touchdown, Tampa Bay. Super Bowl 55 will be underway at Raymond James Stadium. Here's the snap out of the gun. Play action fake pass to Gronkowski. He's going to score a touchdown. Touchdown, Tampa Bay. Holy guacamole. Bucs are the Super Bowl champs. They can't stop the clock. And there the cannons go. Fire them. Keep on firing them. Keep on firing them. Tampa Bay Buccaneers from the 48-yard line. Second down, 13. Brady lobs one downfield. Caught ball by Gronkowski inside the 20 to the 15-10. Gronkowski to the 5 to the 4-yard line. Holy guacamole. There's the snap. Mahomes running to his right. Look out. He may run. Mahomes goes toward the end down. Battle intercepted. Picked off in the end zone. Bucs are going to beat the Chiefs. We're the champions of the world, and we still have a minute 33 to go. Devin White.
This is the Big Nasty. Yeah, Big Nasty. Hall of Fame Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan, baby.
This is Mike Allstott, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you're listening to the Cannon Fire Podcast.
Cannon Fire Podcast, brother. You ain't listening, and you're missing out. Woo!
And there the cannons go. Fire them. Keep on firing them. Keep on firing them.
It will be an NFC South showcase on Sunday Night Football for Week 15 of the NFL regular season. Welcome back to the Cannon Fire Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Rhett Matthew. Joined alongside me, my good buddy and co-host, the Philly Bucs fan himself, Mr. Evan Wanish. And we are joined by our good buddy today, the honorary third member of the show, James Hill, a.k.a. Mr. Bucs Nation, here on YouTube. And we have got quite the game shaping up this week, fellas. As I mentioned before, Sunday Night Football, prime time in their home stadium. The 10-3 Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a chance to stay undefeated at home and clinch their first division title in over 14 years. And they get to do all of it against the New Orleans Saints. Plenty of great things to talk about this week. We'll get you caught up on what you need to know for the game and all the latest red and pewter news over the next hour or so. But as I said, welcome back to the podcast. Boys, Evan and James, how are we feeling today? James, I know you got to feel good not being cooped up in the back of a van anymore, right?
Yeah, man. I just got done with a 15-hour drive, which was fun. 15-hour car ride, I guess I should say. So that was fun.
We were planning to do this show yesterday, and then, just some scheduling things happened on my end, but the entire plan was to get you live on Zoom from the back of a van. And I got to tell you, that not only would have been the most prolific guest we had in history, because a lot of people make some excuses to not come on this podcast. And I think you coming to us live from the back of a van from an undisclosed location at some point in the country is the true definition of a hashtag content guy, if you catch my drift, right?
People would have thought I was kidnapped. All right, guys, I'm on a 15 and a half hours car ride. All right, guys, the car we drove was a big old white SUV, so actually getting kidnapped.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been James' last podcast appearance ever. I mean, it could have been the last time anybody ever saw you alive, because the people who kidnapped you, we don't know what their intentions were. Luckily, they brought you back, though, for the sake of Buccaneers content.
Thankfully, So yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me here, guys. Greatly appreciated. I'm ready to talk about some Buccaneers football against the Saints.
100%.
So wait, you weren't abducted?
No.
I was under the impression the whole time.
Yeah, from what I understand, they took you against your will, but they kind of got bored of you and brought you back.
Well,
yeah, they took one look at James and said, that's it.
I think that's just a normal trip with the family anyway. So
wow. Ladies and gentlemen, James Hill throwing shots at the rest of the Hill family. This is I wonder what Hank and Bobby are going to think of this.
We're gonna have a fatal 4-way at some point,
Yeah, there better be some tables involved. I'll make sure we're there rolling camera. But let's go ahead and
Tony
talk.
will be there.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and talk about this week's game. So again, we looked at the Bills game being the biggest regular season matchup for the Bucs. I think this one trumps it just because of what's at stake, right? I mean, obviously the Bucs still in the hunt for the 1 seed. That's going to come down to if they can win these final 4 games over the next month. But truthfully, if you win the division, this is the goal that Tampa Bay had. They got the Super Bowl last year, but it's been said they wanted the division. They didn't get it. They got swept by New Orleans in the regular season last year, beat them again in the playoffs, but you had to do it as a wild card. Here they are, the number 2 seed in the NFC right now. It's a 3-way tie between first. All these teams have a 10-3 record at this point, so you just have to win. And they can do that against not only a division opponent, but they can crown themselves NFC South champions for the first time since 2007. And I got to tell you, there is no better team to do it against than the New Orleans Saints. And I know that coming into this game, their roster is exploded. I mean, it seems like they barely have an offense left. They're down a head coach, by the way. Sean Payton going to be missing this matchup after testing positive with COVID-19 earlier this week. So honestly, if the Bucs lose this week, there really aren't any excuses that are going to be good enough, in my opinion. Like not only do they have to focus on putting together a complete 4 quarters of football, but you have to beat the Saints in the regular season. You have to win the division this week of all weeks. Like it has to come together. And with everything happening for New Orleans that's affecting them negatively, it just seems like there isn't really a better week for something like this to happen.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just like you talked about. Not really a better team I think you could do it against than the Saints. Now, I will say the Saints really, especially in Tampa, I don't want to discourage anybody here, but the Saints inside in Tampa have actually had the Bucs number. I got a few stats here. The Saints have won in Tampa 3 years straight in the regular season. All of those victories were by 10+ points, so they're all by multiple scores. Since 2010, the Saints are 8-3 versus the Bucs in Tampa. The last Bucs win, I believe, was the Chris Godwin walk-off touchdown. That was 2017, I think.
Yeah, and it's even crazy thinking back to that game because we watched a compilation of all of Chris Godwin's career touchdowns, and that walk-off against New Orleans was his first career touchdown. Given the career he's already put together, it's crazy to seem like it really was that long ago.
Yeah. So Bruce Arians, as the Bucs head coach, is 0-5 in the regular season against the Saints. He's only ever lost to them by a single possession. That's in Tampa and in New Orleans. And the one time he did, the Bucs scored a touchdown with 12 seconds left to make it a 1-score game. So really, it was a 2-score game anyway. In his head coaching career, he is 2-7 against Bruce Arians. The Saints are Bruce Arians 2-7 against the Saints. There we go. English is hard, folks. But I did point out that the Bucs are a fairly healthy group, right? They're going to be missed. Jamel Dean was ruled out. But Richard Sherman's probably not going to play. But as far as, Carlton Davis is back. Charles Murphy-Bunting is back. 2 guys that they didn't have, when they faced New Orleans last time. Gronkowski is back on 100%. Gronk was back for that New Orleans game, but he wasn't healthy. So Now that they're back and they're seemingly more healthy than they've been, yeah, there's no excuse to go in and lose to the Taysom Hill led Saints. And I even said, like, if you lose to them at home with a chance to clinch the division, you can forget about the 1 seed, and also you don't deserve the 1 seed anyway. If you lose this game, I don't even know, you'll still get the division, but I don't even know if you deserve the division. I mean, you're being swept by New Orleans again, in front of your home crowd on prime time with this Saints offense that is just decimated. Their defense is still good, but the Saints offense has just been brutal. If you lose this game, you don't deserve really either one of those things. I'm not saying the 1 seed's out the window if you lose this game, right? That's just that is a definite. But the division, they're going to win the division still. Like, I'm pretty confident that. I think we all are confident in that. But just end it, right? Just end it. Sunday night against the Saints. The last time the Saints were in that building, they embarrassed you on prime time. It was on Sunday Night Football again. Yeah, just find a way to end it. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be pretty, but just win. Just find a way to win.
And looking at where these two teams have gone since their last matchup, Halloween in week 8 up in New Orleans, the Buccaneers did not win that game. But since then, the Buccaneers have basically not lost very many either. They ended up dropping that one to Washington afterwards. But since then, they have won every other game that they've had. Meanwhile, the Saints, the team has definitely just fallen apart. I mean, they lost their starting quarterback in Jameis Winston against Tampa Bay. And after that, between the injuries and everything else, it's just been kind of hard for them to keep up. They were able to beat the Jets last week and their rookie quarterback. Yeah, big whoop. But, I mean, they beat the Jets after dropping 5 straight games. So they were able to party in the locker room like they usually do after beating the Bucs. So clearly they won their season Super Bowl, but forgot about all the other games they had after that, dropping 5 of their last 6. So New Orleans coming into this one 6-7. They are also missing, along with their head coach, their starting left and right tackles for this week, which is going to be huge. We'll talk about the pass rush and the importance that brings later on in the show. But, looking back at New Orleans, as far as the good news on their plate, they have also been down Alvin Kamara for a number of weeks. They got him back last week versus New York, and then they activated Mark Ingram this week. So I think this week, when you look at what the Saints have, what they're coming into this game with, they're missing their starting quarterback. They don't even have Trevor Siemian anymore, who single-handedly slayed the Bucs last time they played. They are running with Taysom Hill full-time now. I mean, Sean Payton has no excuse to say that that's not his guy anymore, because it definitely is their guy. But I'll tell you, with what all of those guys bring to the table, Alvin Kamara really, getting his wheels back under him. Mark Ingram always finds a way to give the Bucs problems. He did that week 8 against this team. This is a huge test for the run game this week, the run defense of Tampa Bay, because if you want me honest, these last 3 to 4 games, they have not been playing up to the persona they have set themselves. We talked for 2 years straight about this being the number 1 run defense in the NFL. And while it doesn't have to be number 1 by a huge margin, I think seeing them stop some of these less than capable backs is going to be important as the playoffs get underway, because not only do you have the Saints offense, who always moves the ball.
Is not a less than capable back, though.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what I mean. I think I'm putting emphasis on, some of these less than capable backs are putting up over 100 yards. I mean, they just gave up over 100 yards on the ground to Josh Allen last week on quarterback runs, and you're telling me Taysom Hill isn't going to try and do the same thing.
What does that have to do with the run defense, though, really? Like,
these last 4 games, they've been averaging a little over 5 yards per carry.
I understand that, but just when you're doing quarterback designed runs, like especially to the outside, like I said, just try and run to the outside against the Bucs. But when you're doing that, I don't know. It'd be more worrisome if a running back did that. Now, Devin Singletary did have a few nice carries. Like, I'm not gonna just ignore that. He did have a few nice carries. But a lot of the times the Bucs were playing pass. It happened in Philly. The Eagles start running the ball when the Bucs are up big and they're playing for the pass. Real quick before we head over to James, because he's on the show too. The Saints, after losing Jameis Winston, yes, they beat the Bucs. Then, I mean, they played hard versus the Falcons. They ended up losing. And then they played hard, really hard versus Tennessee, and they almost tied the game, but failed a 2-point conversion. But after that, I mean, they lost to Philly 40-29. They lost to Buffalo 31-6. They lost to Dallas 27-17. Like they just haven't been good. They were playing hard after that Tennessee game, but after that, the three against Philly, Buffalo, Dallas were not really competitive. And obviously you're playing the Jets then. So yeah, I mean, this Saints team, while they're still in the hunt, right? Technically, they haven't really been playing that great of football recently.
And just to clarify your statement for any Saints fan who may listen to our podcast,
I hate you.
Did you just tell me that the Saints could not beat all the teams that the Bucs were able to handle this year? That's what you accurately just told me?
That's actually true. Yeah, the Bucs have beaten all three of those teams.
Wow, so. Very, very interesting. James, your thoughts?
And the Saints lost to the Falcons too. The Bucs just swept.
Unbelievable.
And the Giants beat the Saints, who the Bucs also beat.
Just a very interesting nugget of information. That's all. That's all for our New Orleans listeners. Just something to think about.
It's really interesting. I still think that there's that stigma in the air, right? Whenever the Bucs play the Saints. Of course there is. Evan, me and you have talked about this before.
We talked about it right after the Halloween game. We talked about it late that night.
Right. So there's still this stigma. Man, they can have Taysom Hill, Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram. Hell, they could have nobody at quarterback. And
they could have you.
Yeah, we could be out there, right, for this Saints offense. And it's just something. The Saints coaching staff, I think specifically, always seems to have the number of what the Bucs are trying to do, both for the offense and the defense, and it's been so frustrating the past couple of years. And I think that there really hasn't been much done to get rid of that stigma. So, while we do talk about them not having their left tackle, them not having their right tackle, them not having Jameis Winston, them benching Trevor Siemian, all these things. I'm not, I'm saying that this is still going to be a competitive game. It's because, of course it is, because it's the Saints. It's always competitive. They always pull something crazy out against the Bucs every single time. Hopefully the Buccaneers have learned their lessons, the past 3 or 4 times they've played the Saints. So we'll see what happens, because they've got a lot of frustrating players that are going to be active on that Saints offense, regardless of all those injuries. So, they should still win this game, right? Due to, all
they're the better team,
right?
They were the better team week 8 too, and they didn't win.
Right, I agree. It's just something with the Saints, man. So while there are all these injuries, something about the Saints where you can't take them lightly, especially against the Bucs. So
no, you're 100% correct, but I'll tell you, I think what can counter that problem this week, and this is something else I wanted to get your guys' opinions on. We talked with our good buddy Gene from Buck What You Heard on Wednesday's show, and we talked about what the Bucs have done well over these last, almost 2 seasons now. But I'll tell you, regardless of all the things that they have done well this season, regardless of how much better of a team they are coming into this week's matchup, I don't think any of it's going to matter unless they can put together a complete football game. And, as the playoffs get closer, that's something we talked about pretty good while on the last show, was just this team's ability to clean it all up, start to button things up as the playoffs approach. But, when you are going against a competitive Saints team who always seems to have your number, regardless of how outmanned or outgunned they may seem, if you want to be competitive in this game and you want to keep your distance from New Orleans, which I think is a comfortable win, is something everybody will enjoy, you have to go out there and compete for 4 entire quarters. You can't shoot yourself in the foot, which they have done a better job of cleaning up self-inflicted penalties over this past month or so. But there's a lot of little things the Bucs have to make sure they do right. And, of course, over time, the better you do it, the more accurately you can put together 4 complete quarters of football, the better team you're going to be in time for the playoffs. But I think, that extra motivation that they need, it has to start this week, because they can out-talent the hell out of New Orleans. But like both of you guys just alluded to, if they're not playing competitively, they're going to get behind, and it's going to be a pretty tough afternoon.
They were behind a lot of that game, in week 8. I think the Bucs only led, I think, twice, which was they scored first, and then they led 27-26. So, it's gonna be difficult. Tony asks, who's the Aints play caller now that Sean Payton has COVID? Pete Carmichael, I believe, is going to be their play caller. He's their offensive coordinator. In terms of who's going to act as head coach, I believe that's going to be Dennis Allen, their defensive coordinator. So obviously he has experience. He coached the Raiders. So that's not whenever you talk about coaching, it's a loss, but it's not as big of a loss because your game plans pretty much remain the same and everything. It's executing them. But yeah, I mean, you talk about that playoff game last year, and it's almost like, the Saints have forgotten about that game, right? Like the Saints still think, and I think we talked about it, James, like the Saints think that was a fluke, like that was a complete fluke, because they still believe in week 8, you almost reassured it, right? That, that the Bucs can't beat the Saints. Like they can't do it. And it doesn't matter what team the Saints have, doesn't matter what team the Bucs have. It's always going to be close, and this is going to be a close game. So before we get into the matchups, like offense, defense, and stuff, like I said, just wanted to point that out that, the playoff game was great, right? Like you'll always have that, but like the Saints have quickly forgotten about that. And if the Bucs still want to hang on to that, they're going to be losing on Sunday night as well.
And one more thing that's important to mention is we talk about what's on the line for these two teams coming into this week's matchup. TB12 Goatman in the live chat makes a great point. Let's not forget that the Saints are playing for their postseason lives at 6-7. Believe it or not,
everybody's 6-7.
Yeah, I know.
3 or 4 different teams.
Any 6-7 team could make the playoffs. It's kind of crazy how we're in week 15 of the NFL season, and more than half of the NFC could still just take that last wild card spot. The Saints are one of those teams sitting with a 6-7 record. So not only are they going to be giving the Bucs their best football, because everybody does that this season, not only are they going to be giving the Bucs the best football because they are division rivals and they hate Tampa Bay, but on top of all of that, these guys are playing for a chance to make it to the postseason, which is still very much possible, believe it or not, with a 6-7 record.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's like 4 or 5 different teams. It's Philly, Washington, Minnesota, I think, might have a 6-7 record. The Saints, the Falcons now have a 6-7 record. Like, there's a lot of teams there that are going to be competing for it. And the Saints know that they gotta. I believe they have the Bucs. Then they play the Dolphins. Then they play the Panthers and Falcons. So the Saints got to probably win 3 of 4 of their last 4, and I think they would love to do it. Do it this time, and not only help their playoff chances, but also, they know what's at stake. That they know what happens if the Bucs win. That they've been the NFC South champions for 4 or 5 years straight. They don't want to give that up right away. So, they're gonna have plenty of motivation, I think, to get this done.
So let's go ahead and get into. Let's go ahead and get into some of the matchups that you had talked about. I wanted to cover first maybe the Buccaneers offense against the Saints defense, and we'll kind of look at what the Saints on the defensive side of the ball bring to the table. So their pass defense is ranked middle of the road. I think they're like 18th in passing yards per game.
They turn into like number 1 against the Bucs every year. Right?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Their pass defense isn't really anything to write home about this year. They did shut down Zach Wilson, the rookie quarterback, in the New York Jets last week. So let's not forget about that feat against an offensive powerhouse in the NFL. But I'll tell you, the one thing that really has come to light with the Saints defense is their pass rush these past few weeks. They have really found a way to blossom after Week 8's game on Halloween. I think they're a top 5 team in the league on quarterback pressures and hits. So that's going to be pretty interesting coming into this matchup. But Evan, I wanted to get your thoughts first here for the Bucs offense, and of course what we know they can do. What do you think that game plan is going to come down to this week? Is it one guy who's going to be getting more looks than everybody else? I know Chris Godwin has put together a pretty good stretch of games, the first receiver to hit 1K this year on receiving yards, but we also know Leonard Fournette can run it down these guys' throats if they wanted to give him 20 carries per game. So it's interesting to see what they do this week, but with their pass rush being what it is, what does that leave in the deck of cards for the Bucs?
Yeah, well, I mean, you talk about Chris Godwin being hot. He caught 8 balls for 140 yards at a touchdown that Week 8 game. So I think they're going to be looking to Godwin again. Mike Evans has had trouble with Marshawn Lattimore. We always talk about it. And I think they're going to be looking Godwin's way again. Now, something that happened in a Week 8 game, that was Tyler Johnson's best game as well. 5 receptions for 65 yards. And maybe you could say, well, I was going to say you need Johnson to do that again, But on the other hand, you could say, well, maybe not, because you'll have a healthy Gronkowski, right? Gronkowski, he was back, but what did he play? Like 4 snaps or something. Then he had the back tightness. So didn't really play. So, having him back will be huge. Mike Evans just always struggles against Marshall Lattimore. It's going to happen. So I do think you're going to see a lot of Gronkowski. I think you're going to see a lot of Godwin. Leonard Fournette, he should be good to go. Showed up on the injury report this week, but practiced on Friday. So that's a positive sign that he'll be able to go. I think you'll see him out of the backfield as well, obviously, especially without Gio Bernard being there, right? You're going to have that receiving option, and Fournette's turned in to be, their best option there. So, as far as the Saints defensive line, I have faith in the Bucs offensive line. The Bills pass rush is so-so. It's not great, but it's also not the worst. The Bucs offensive line held up pretty good in the second half. There was a few lapses, but I trust the Bucs offensive line. They were able to play well against the Saints in week 8. The Saints got some sacks. I believe they got back-to-back sacks when the game was already decided. I think after the pick 6, I think they ended up getting their sacks. So, I trust the offensive line. I do. I don't think Ryan Jensen was on the injury report this week, so it sounds like he's 100% good to go. He's done with that ailment that he had. I even forget what it was. Russ in the chat says Saints are lucky AB isn't playing. AB didn't play in that week 8 game either. So yeah, that's they've caught a break there a lot. So I thought Brady was spectacular in week 8. I thought he played great. Easily his best game against the Saints as a Buck, even that playoff game. Made some mistakes, obviously. The big one being
you got to make sure you acknowledge those, because there's going to be a lot of people who hear you say that and go, whoa, and they're going to freak out and flip the table on you.
Well, whatever. If you know my thoughts on Tom Brady, it's not a surprise to see me give him credit. Anyway, one of the interceptions was a clear defensive pass interference, but okay. So it's going to be difficult, but yet again, the Bucs have more talent. So I just think the Saints defense is good, right? But the Bucs have a lot of talent, and they seem to be clicking at the right time. And this game's at home. We all talked about how the Bucs are a different offense. They're a different team at home. And I do think that matters.
James, before I get your opinion, I do want to bring up one more thing that I think could be an X factor for this offense. Tony Baloney in the live chat not only brings up the penalties, which I think we'll talk about here in a second, but he also talked about the emergence of Rob Gronkowski, who is not only available for this game, but he should be feeling as close to 100% as he has the entire season. We saw the return of 87 against New Orleans in week 8, and I thought he was going to be a way bigger factor than he was. I think that's just because I didn't entirely understand how much pain he was until we saw him actually go out there and not be 100%. But I think that's huge this week. You talk about Brady being red hot. Gronk's still doing his thing, more touchdowns than ever, it seems like. So I think he could be a huge factor, especially when it comes to the red zone. If Mike Evans is having a rough day, and a lot of attention is going to be on Chris Godwin, of course, Rob Gronkowski could just go out there and do his thing, because, the mismatches are one thing, but when you're covering Gronk, I feel like it goes beyond mismatches. You have to dominate that assignment if you're going to slow down Big 87. And hopefully, I think he finds himself in the end zone this Sunday. That's my bold prediction. We get bold, quote unquote. We get a Gronk touchdown this week against New Orleans, and it's going to be in the end zone with the ship. That's my prediction there. But James, your thoughts on this Buccaneers offense versus New Orleans defense?
I'm a pretty big here at Hill House. We're pretty big Brashad Perriman people.
Oh, my God.
We were freaking out in the car.
Were you just freaking out as much as Rhett was, or?
I was fist bumping everybody in the car.
So James, were you watching the game on your phone, or you listening to a radio?
I was listening to Rhett.
Oh, okay.
The whole time. The whole live stream.
By the way, not to toot my own horn here, but he might as well have been listening to the radio, because I can't think of a better Bucs game caster than that guy you had fill in for you on your channel that day.
No, seriously, you did a fantastic job. That's why I didn't have to go and listen to the radio or go watch the game on.
Thank you, buddy.
On whatever. But yeah, Brashad Perriman, man, I don't know, man. Was that his breakout moment where he starts to get? They've already got a nickname for him, man. BP. BP. So here's what I'm going to say. Here's my bold prediction, okay? Brashad Perriman Okay. He's going to have over 100 receiving yards this game.
That's that's more bold than Rhett's was.
That's definitely a bold prediction.
Rhett's was a
mine was a cupcake.
Yeah.
Bruce Arians was waiting for Tom to finally start targeting Brashad Perriman. He was waiting.
Batting practice.
You heard Tom Brady whenever he came back after the game. He's like, man, BP, he's just fast. He was gone. He was loving it. So I think that the Saints, because they're the Saints and they always do this, they're going to focus on Mike Evans. They're going to focus on a little bit of Chris Godwin. You know, they're going to try and take away everything. But that's when Brashad Perriman shows up, baby, and you ain't going to stop him. He's going to get over 100 receiving yards. That's it. I think, but whenever you look at it, no, Evan was right. Marshawn Lattimore, he does always seem to have Mike Evans' number. It's frustrating, but it happens. Maybe Mike Evans will still continue to get some good looks in the red zone. I think that's definitely a possibility.
I will say, Tony points out, Evans played better against Lattimore in week 8 than he has in the past. So
right. So we'll see. He got a little bit of momentum back in his favor, so we'll see if he can continue to use that. Chris Godwin's looked well against the Saints in the past, but Dennis Allen, he's fantastic defensive coach in this league, and he does a really good job of taking away a lot of the weapons that the Buccaneers offense has. So I agree with what you guys are saying, where you look at guys like Rob Gronkowski, you look at guys like Leonard Fournette to kind of make up for where some of these other guys might get taken away, and I think that'll be huge. So I expect a lot of Gronk. I expect a lot of Leonard Fournette, like what you guys were saying, but I'm going to throw in BP.
Well,
real quick,
if you like bold predictions, that's the boldest one you're going to get today. Brashad Perriman, 100+ yards against New Orleans.
Joe Enriquez says, "Whoa, I don't know about all that. Gronk will have 100 yards before BP does." I mean, it's a bold prediction, so that's I don't know why everybody's giving James hate. It's a bold prediction. It's most likely not going to be right. That's what makes it bold.
We like acronyms on this show. BP for BP, bold prediction for Brashad Perriman. It's the new weekly segment with our guy, Mr. Bucs Nation.
Before we move on to the Bucs defense versus the Saints offense, I just wanted to be, I think this is the more interesting matchup, right? The Bucs offense versus the Saints defense, because you have units that are at full strength here, going to be competing against each other. The team's best 2 units, right? The Bucs offense versus the Saints defense. So that's why I think we got to spend more time talking about this. This is from Brad Spielberger from PFF. Since joining the Bucs, James, you talked about how good of a defensive coach Dennis Allen is. Well, he's been very good against Tom Brady in the Bucs uniform. Since joining the Bucs, Tom Brady versus Dennis Allen Saints defense, a 67.5 PFF passing grade, a 1.14 touchdown to interception ratio, 9 turnover-worthy plays. That's 5.7%. So a little over 5% of the plays that he has are turnover worthy, and averaging 255 passing yards per game. Tom Brady versus everyone else in the NFL since joining the Bucs, a 93.9 pass grade, 4.33 touchdown to interception ratio, 14 turnover worthy plays. That's 1.2%, and 303 yards per game. So while I still believe, and some people disagree with me, and I was going to go Skip Bayless on them that they disagree with me, but that Tom Brady didn't play well in that game. But did you watch the game? That's what I'll ask, because he was spectacular.
Didn't even turn it on.
He was the only reason they had a chance. So I don't care what anybody says. So I mean, those numbers though, those are the numbers, man, right? Like week 1 last year, it is a little skewed. It's his first ever game with the Bucs, no preseason, no training camp. It was a crap show, whatever. Then week 9, 2020, we all know what happened there. I was there for that one. Even though it wasn't really his fault, just a bad showing. Even in the playoff game, Brady was very much a game manager in that playoff game. The defense really stepped up and really won that game for him. So, and then Brady, I thought was really good last time, but just, came up short. So yeah, but those numbers are accurate, and those numbers tell you the story that Dennis Allen really has his defense really hasn't performed well against Tom Brady. And I think it's kind of the thing about, being up against the GOAT, right? And everybody, not only do they want to give you your best shot because you're the champions and you're a rival, but that's Tom Brady, right? Everybody wants to be able to intercept or sack Tom Brady. So, it will be a challenge, I think, but at the same time, like we keep coming back to, the Bucs just have more talent, and as long as they're not shooting themselves in the foot with penalties like they did last time, the offense should be able to have some success.
Yeah, that's 100% one of the biggest factors of this game for the Bucs on offense too. Like, execution is there, but along with execution, it has to be, no turnovers. You don't need to give New Orleans any reason to set up an easy score to possibly keep them in the game. They've played a lot of other games this year where teams have simply been kept in games because of costly turnovers. It cannot happen this time of year. And then, of course, cleaning up the flags as well. But looking at what Dennis Allen, as a defensive play caller, has been able to do against Tom Brady, hopefully for the Buccaneers and Brady's sake going forward, he can fill one of those head coaching vacancies sometime over the offseason, because I think, there's a lot of guys on the list of potential NFL head coaches, and he may be one of them. I know this doesn't have to do with the game this week, but it kind of just came to mind, and I'm curious your guys' thoughts on it as well. We talk about potential head coaches. They just recently changed the NFL rules on interviewing head coaches, so the final 2 weeks of the season, the regular season, teams can actually start the interview process for some of these coaches. I wanted to get your thoughts on a pair of coordinators in Tampa Bay. Todd Bowles, we'll talk about him second, because I don't think he's going to be as hot of a coaching candidate as a guy like Byron Leftwich will be. But I mean, a lot of this is just hearsay at this point. But Byron Leftwich is a name who's already been attached to a lot of these coaching jobs, specifically in Jacksonville. And I think, Evan, we said this off of the show. You made a great point to where Byron Leftwich probably wouldn't be mentioned for the coaching job in Jacksonville if he wasn't their quarterback for a number of years. But, what are your thoughts on this potentially being Byron Leftwich, his last season in Tampa, if another team wants to scoop him up? Is it that much of a possibility that some people are leading on?
I think it's possible. There hasn't been any reports or anything, right? It's just a lot of the betting sites and a lot of the speculation. I think, and we talked about this in our group chat earlier this week. I think if Leftwich didn't play for the Jaguars, you might not hear as much about the connection. But I mean, it makes sense. Everybody's looking for that hot offensive coordinator, right? But I'm not sure. I'm really not sure if Byron is going to take a job this year. It still feels like Leftwich might be a year away from getting a job. I think Bowles is close. I think Bowles was close last year too, which is why he got a few interviews. But I mean, there's a definite connection there. A lot of people are talking about, the next hire has to help, develop Trevor Lawrence. Well, here's the thing. Byron Leftwich, it's not like he has a long history of developing quarterbacks, right? I mean, he had Jameis Winston for a year, and now he's got Tom Brady. So, it's not like he has this long history of, he's a quarterback developer. He can get this, this, and this. So I'm not sure if Jacksonville's going to look to that. They were interested in Eric Bieniemy. I think he was basically second on their list before they hired Urban Meyer last year. So, I would think Bieniemy would be at the top of the list, but I think Leftwich will be on that list. As far as Bowles, I wouldn't expect him in Jacksonville. Maybe a place like Chicago, I think you might be on the lookout for that. But as far as this job in Jacksonville, I wouldn't expect Bowles, but I would keep an eye out for Leftwich. I wouldn't expect it, but I also wouldn't be completely shocked either, because a lot of fans, and I've been arguing on Twitter this past week, and there's been a lot of discussion. I still think Byron Leftwich is a good offensive coordinator. I think all offensive coordinators have inconsistencies, but he is still a good offensive coordinator. So, I think, it'd be a good thing for the Bucs to keep him. It would not be a good thing to lose him. But the good news is I don't believe they're going to lose him, at least not to Jacksonville.
So let's go ahead and take a look at the rest of.
Oh man, hang on. Let James get his
okay,
take
all right, James, your 2 cents on potential coaching changes for Tampa
I know
Bay.
his opinion. I know his opinion doesn't matter that.
Yeah, no. He just listen. I know that sometimes when you have a third person on the show, there's a chemistry you have to work out. And James, you're a really good friend of ours.
We've only done like 30 shows together.
Yeah, I know. So I guess
it's my turn. It's my turn.
You should have done that. Oh man, missed opportunity.
It's your it's your turn, James. Your thoughts.
It is my turn. It's my turn. So yeah, just real quick. I mean, I talked about this in the group chat. I don't know if there's a bold prediction, but I think that the Jaguars will end up hiring Byron Leftwich. I'm just firing a lot of weird takes out this podcast.
Hey, somebody's got to do it.
I think that there's my reasoning behind why I think the Jaguars would do it is like what you guys said. Former first-round draft pick there in Jacksonville. That's a tie to the city, to the team. That would be some good PR, I think, given all the crap the Jaguars just dealt with for the past year. Bring back the guy that a lot of people, I think, remember somewhat fondly with Byron Leftwich. It would be a cultural shift in terms of the seemingly ultra intense, I guess, if you want to use that word, situation involving Urban Meyer. I like to think that you kind of get a more not laid back but down to earth kind of situation and culture with Byron Leftwich.
Byron's not going to go kick his kickers.
No, he's a player's guy, right? Like he really connects with guys on his offense and on his team. We've seen it with the Bucs. So I think that that's another reason why they could want to go for a switch like that, along with his history being with the Jacksonville Jaguars already. It'd be a good story involving that. In the case of developing Trevor Lawrence, me and you talked about this, Evan, in the group chat. Obviously, Byron Leftwich has not had a lot of time to work with quarterbacks. He's worked with Josh Rosen. I don't even think he got to work with Kyler Murray. And no, he didn't even get to work with Kyler Murray in Arizona. It was Josh Rosen, some other quarterback in Arizona. I can't remember. It was
Sam Bradford.
It was Sam Bradford in Arizona. And then he went to Jameis Winston and then Tom Brady, right? I think that's
not a lot of development there.
But I will say this. 2 years with Tom Brady, we've seen how teams react to offensive coordinators working with great quarterbacks. Adam Gase spent 4 years with Peyton Manning over there in Denver. He got 2 head coaching jobs out of that because Peyton Manning would recommend him. If Tom Brady says to if they ask hey Tom,
Tom's gonna say F off.
But if Tom Brady
this guy's washed.
This guy.
If Tom Brady gives any form of recommendation, and he's honest, because I imagine Tom Brady does like Byron Leftwich as an offensive coordinator, that's going to help out a lot, I think, and teams do look at those types of things and go, well, he had 2 years with Tom Brady. He's going to be great. I'm not saying Byron Leftwich would go over there and be bad, but we've seen similar scenarios with guys like Adam Gase and other offensive coordinators who work with these great quarterbacks in the past and go and are able to get some head coaching jobs. I mean, you saw that with, Bruce Arians. Obviously, Bruce Arians' resume was way, way, way more vast and extensive than Byron Leftwich's, but the point still stands. That's how teams think whenever they see these OCs working with these all-time great quarterbacks. They really want to make them head coaches. So I think there's a lot of threads there that I think, I could be dead wrong. I probably will be dead wrong, but there's a lot of threads there that I think will lead to Byron Leftwich being the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
And obviously this entire situation has nothing to do with the game this Sunday. Something we'll probably talk about way more when the time comes. But, with all of these rumors starting to pop up, the seed has been planted. So just something to think about. But let's go ahead and put a bow on this game preview and talk about the other side of the football for these two teams. The Buccaneers defense versus the New Orleans offense. I know we talked at the start of the show about how, I think personally the run defense is going to be a big factor of how this game goes. But really quickly, we'll get to this question from TB12 Goatman in the live chat. This is for you, Evan. I'll toss it to you first. Do y'all think we play a lot of zone, keeping eyes on Taysom Hill, or do we play man, make him throw into tight windows with D. White maybe playing a spy? And I will say, I don't know about, tight windows and man coverage being a connection on this team, because it seems like our man coverage is anything but tight windows, as Tony Baloney would say. But, what is the overall defensive game plan this week, and how did the Bucs approach containing Taysom Hill and that offense?
Well, I do think they've learned a little bit of lessons from Josh Allen, right? I think it was actually good to play a quarterback like Josh Allen before you're playing Taysom Hill. Look, Trevor Siemian isn't going to run, right? Jameis Winston will run a little bit, but like Taysom Hill, like you're not really going to be doing designed runs for Jameis Winston, right? So Taysom Hill, you're going to be doing like designed stuff to get the ball in Taysom Hill's hands and get him to run the football. And I think having played Josh Allen, that'll help the defensive line. That'll help the linebackers. In terms of coverage, it's tough. They had a lot of success last year with the Saints against, with man, right? And especially in that playoff game. But they played zone week 9 and Drew Brees just picked them apart. Obviously, Taysom Hill is not Drew Brees, even though Drew Brees had declining physical traits, right? His arm strength, his mobility, stuff like that. He was still a very smart football player, right? And if you're going to play zone against him and not get a rush there, he's going to pick you apart. Is Taysom Hill going to do that? No, not really, right? Drew Brees was still accurate. He just didn't really have the arm strength. Taysom Hill has some arm strength. He has some pop in the arm, but how accurate is he going to be? And are the Bucs going to force him to maybe throw into those tight windows, but leave their corners on an island, kind of, or are they gonna, have zone coverage and make Taysom Hill make the right decision, while also hopefully getting a pass rush. So it'll be interesting to see, and I'm not really sure which way they're gonna lean. I would probably, they play zone most of the time, probably like 70-30 zone, even though I still do believe that has mostly to do with them basically playing backup corners the entire year. So now that the starting secondary is back, it's easier to play man coverage when you have, Carlton Davis and Sean Murphy-Bunting. You won't have Jamel Dean, but Ross Cockrell is filled in. I know people hate him because they expect him to be like this all-pro backup player, I guess. And it's super weird, but whatever. He's fine. It's a tough call. I think the number one thing, though, has to be containing Taysom Hill, not letting him rush for 7-8 yards to pop, right? That can't happen. If that happens, the Saints are staying on schedule. They're doing what they want to do, and you got to limit that. So I think the Saints game plan will be get the ball out of Taysom Hill's hands quick, probably into an Alvin Kamara. Hopefully, Kamara can break some tackles, and they'll be able to fool him a little bit with some designed runs for Taysom Hill. I think the Bucs game plan has to be not necessarily putting pressure on Hill, just containing him inside that pocket and forcing him to make the throws, right? If he makes the throws, great, but you can't give him really anything easy.
And I think when this defense is going to be keeping an eye on so many players on the field, like let's say they bring out a set with both Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara, you're going to have to pay attention to both of those guys on top of whoever else they have on top of the field. Taysom Hill, always a little bit of a wild card, but you said it's not so much about putting pressure on him this week, and I do agree. I think it's about containing him, but a big part of that is going to be the defensive pressure they can accumulate with 4 guys. We talked about the improvement of this pass rush over the second half of the season. I think bringing pressure with 4 guys so everybody else can just stay on their assignment is going to be crucial this week. And with the Saints already being down, they're starting 2 offensive tackles. I'm expecting a guy like Shaq Barrett to step up and just continue his excellent level of play. I think Shaq Barrett gets 1 sack, maybe 2 this week. All right, I'll jump on the James train here. I will say Shaq Barrett gets 2 sacks this week against New Orleans. I think he plays like a man possessed.
I'll raise you.
That's still not that's not bold.
I'm going to say he's going to get
2
3.
sack performance?
I'm going to say he's going to get 3. I'll raise you 1.
All right.
I'll say, here's my bold prediction. Carlton Davis gets 2 interceptions.
Let's go.
There's my bold.
Now we're cooking, boys.
Yeah, that's bold if I've ever heard it. James, I want to get your thoughts.
Carlton Davis has never had a career 2 interception game. It's going to happen Sunday.
I like it. Like Babe Ruth, pointing to the outfield.
Calling his shot, man.
Yeah, all right. James, speaking of calling shots, I'm excited to hear what you say next, man. I want your take on this Bucs defense going up against the Saints offense and Taysom Hill.
Man, it's all about Taysom Hill, Alvin Kamara, and Mark Ingram, right? I've said this before, and I think we've all said this before. We've all been proven right. If they don't have Alvin Kamara, that offense dies, just point blank dies for the most part, right? Now you got Alvin Kamara back. That's a headache. That's a huge headache. You combine that with Taysom Hill and Mark Ingram. That's a big problem. It's an annoyance, right? Because they can do so many different types of things. You know, the Saints, they like to get cute with their offensive play calling and do all these wacky, weird, fun things, I guess. And I expect that to be no different in this game because it's worked for them against the Bucs in the past, time and time again. So, you know, in regards to what do you do against Taysom Hill and Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram, I think that stopping the run is first and foremost, you know, I mean, first and foremost. I saw somebody in the chat say, you know, you got to shadow Taysom Hill. I would honestly, man, I'd probably have somebody shadow Taysom Hill, have somebody shadow Alvin Kamara, you know, because I mean, just that's it, man. You know, if you make Taysom Hill throw, I don't think the Saints offense will be nearly as efficient as they want to be. It's all about them getting comfortable with the run game. Like Evan said, controlling the pace of the game at their own flow. Kind of like how the Colts do things with Jonathan Taylor, you know, to a certain degree. Obviously, I don't think the Colts are as wacky and whatever out there as the Saints like to be with Taysom Hill. But first and foremost, yeah, you got to stop the running ability of Taysom Hill. You've got to stop the running ability of Alvin Kamara. And I think that you'll really start to have more control as to what you make this Saints offense do for the remainder of that game. So I think that's huge.
Let's go ahead and wrap things up with our final segment of the show here on the game preview. It is the weekly checklist where basically we put together a list of 3 or 4 things the Bucs are going to need to do if they want to be victorious and claim their first NFC South title in 14 years against the New Orleans Saints in their home stadium on on a national televised game. I was trying to build it up for something a little more epic, but words are hard, like you said earlier. So Evan, I'll toss it to you, my friend. What have you got for the checklist this week?
I think first and foremost, you got to say stay disciplined because the reason they lost week 8, right? It wasn't the Tom Brady pick 6. It wasn't the defense letting Trevor Siemian go down the field. It was the penalties, right? And it was the dumb penalties that they allowed, the taunting. Some of them were questionable. I get it, right? The roughing the passers, the horse collar thing. Some of them were questionable, but you still let the Saints in your heads and you got to stay disciplined, right? The Saints really have nothing to lose, right? They're on the outside looking in right now. Like, if they lose this game, everybody's expecting them to lose this game, right? It's not like they have a ton of pressure to win this game. The Bucs have a lot of pressure because they want to clinch the division in front of their home fans. They're doing this whole red out thing and everything. You know, there's a lot of pressure on the Bucs, and the Saints know that. So they're going to try to, you know, to get in the Bucs' heads, and the Bucs just cannot let them. And unfortunately, they have in the past, but this time the Bucs just can't let them. So stay disciplined. 2, like I've talked about earlier, contain Taysom Hill. Don't let him, if he wants to hurt you throwing the football, fine. Like, you know, I'm going to allow that. What I'm not going to allow is him to just run all over me and be able to do really whatever he wants on the ground, because that's what he's comfortable doing, right? So take him outside of his comfort zone and make him, you know, make some big time throws to the receivers who aren't that great either. And then the third one is probably protect Tom Brady. Don't let the Saints defensive line have Brady under duress all day. It throws off the entire rhythm of the offense. It really does. And we talked about the Saints defensive line earlier and how good it is. So protect him. If you do these 3 things, you'll win by double digits. Will all 3 of these things happen? It's the Saints, so probably not. You know, but I think even if you get 2 of the 3 of these done, you should be able to win, and it should be fairly comfortable.
James, do you have anything you want to add to the checklist this week? And then after that, I want to hear your score prediction. We'll get into those.
Yeah, you know, nothing much that Evan hasn't already covered, man. Fundamentals is the biggest thing, because it seems like, again, you know, I don't mean to sound negative, you know, but just whenever the Bucs play the Saints, man, it seems like some of their fundamentals just fly out the window. They tackle worse. They get more penalties. All these things happen, you know. So they need to get over that hump. They need to get over that mountain and play more disciplined football. That's the biggest thing, because if you're able to do that, I think everything may start to set in place. And if you aren't able to do that, I think everything starts to fall away. So that's huge, man. That's absolutely huge. So I would just emphasize that point even more than what Evan already did, just because of how important that is going to be in this game.
What's your final score prediction?
Oh, okay. So for my final score prediction, man, I do think the Bucs will win this game. You know, I'm just going to say, because I already had them on 3 losses on the year, and they've already gotten that. So I'm not going to tack onto that. I think that they are going to, it's going to be a close game. So I'm going to say 24-21 is what I think the final score will be.
Okay. So yeah, I have, so the Bucs have a few streaks at home right now going on, right? And I have one streak ending, and I have one streak continuing. So I believe that this is going to be a hard-fought game, just like we talked about, just like James said. It's a divisional game. The Saints, as the chat pointed out, the Saints are playing for their lives, really, right? Like, if they lose this game, then they essentially have to run the table. They have to win 3 straight, and they also have to get help from other teams. You never want to do that. So the Saints know how important this game is, and they would love nothing more than to spoil the Bucs NFC South championship right in front of their home, their home crowd, really, right? I think everybody realized the Bucs are going to win the South, but the Saints are basically going to say, yeah, you're not going to do it against us. So I think they're going to fight really hard. I think the Bucs are the better team, though. And I think the Bucs are going to come out with a win. Their winning streak at home continues. They have not lost a game since week 12 versus Kansas City of last year. But one streak will come to an end. And as James predicted, their streak of scoring over 30 points at home will come to an end. The Saints will hold them under 30. The Bucs will still get the win, though, 27-20.
Well, we've said it before on the show, and I'll say it again. Who doesn't like going streaking every now and again, right? I certainly do, which is why I think
Will Ferrell and old school, man.
Which is exactly why I think both of those streaks continue this week. I have Tampa Bay.
Of course you do.
Yeah, I know, right? Big shocker here. The Eternal Optimist has Tampa Bay winning this game and advancing to 11-3. I think the final score of this one, 35-21. I do think the Buccaneers win by over 10 points. And I think some of the Saints' points, that last touchdown that they get, I think it's garbage time. I think this game could be 35-14 before they, pull something out of their hat on the final drive of the game. But I think the Bucs win this one pretty handily. I mean, I think a lot of people feel the same. It's just, I am the eternal optimist, but it's hard not to get too optimistic sometimes because we have to reason with ourselves. This is still the New Orleans Saints, unfortunately, and we've seen what they have done to the Buccaneers in Raymond James Stadium. I don't care if they're missing a head coach. I don't care if they're missing 2 starting tackles. I don't care if they're missing their starting quarterback. They could make this an interesting game. But I think if the Bucs go out there and play the brand of football we know that they can for 4 complete quarters, they're going to win this one by a landslide. So I have got the Bucs 35-21. So yeah, how you like that?
I mean, yeah, it's not a surprise. I also, my score is 27-20. I think it'll be like the Bucs, even though it's a 1-possession game, I think it'll always feel like the Bucs will be in control of the game for the most part. But what the annoying thing is going to be is the Bucs will let the Saints hang around a little bit.
Right.
Like they'll just like in versus Buffalo. I'm not saying the Bucs are going to be up 24-3, but like versus Buffalo, like the Bucs are going to have, I think the Bucs are going to have opportunities to really put this team away and just like, third quarter or so need a touchdown drive, to put them up 2 scores, 3 scores, and they don't get it. I think the Saints hang around, but I think the Bucs close the door on them pretty quickly. And like I said, I think it'll be 27-17 around the start of the 4th quarter. And then the Saints will kick a field goal, but then I think the Bucs defense, the Saints just don't have enough on offense, I don't think, to be able to get this done.
Oh, yeah, 100%. It's going to be about whether or not they can keep up. And then you talked about keeping those guys in the game. That's going to come down to Tampa Bay, and if they can play 4 complete quarters of football. So if they can do that, I think they win this one pretty handily. Really quick before we wrap things up, we'll go in the live chat. Some score predictions here from our buddy Joel L. Rican, 31-17 Bucs. Brian Shaw says the game will not be close, 38-13 Bucs. The truth, Bucs 32, Saints 10. Rashad Perryman gets way too many targets in this game, kind of supporting the bold prediction put out there by our buddy James Hill. Russ Weeks says we are still the champions. Tony Saylor.
Now, real quick, James, you predicted Rashad Perryman to go over 100 receiving yards. You have not predicted him to get a touchdown, correct? That is not one of your bold predictions.
No.
Silence.
Okay.
All right.
I was thinking if I wanted to say that.
Oh, man.
Give him a tutty.
All right, give him a tutty.
Give him a touchdown.
All right, folks.
100 yards and a touchdown for Rashad Perriman.
You heard it here first. With all of that being said, that's just about going to do it for this week's game preview edition of the Cannon Fire podcast, brought to you by BetOnline.AG. Big thank you to our guy James for coming on the show this week. It's always a pleasure talking to you. And if you guys want to check out his content, Mr. Bucs Nation over on YouTube. Is there anywhere else people can go, or that's it, right?
That's it.
All right.
It's an all right channel.
Yeah, it's okay.
I'm returning today, which is good.
Well, if you like daily Buccaneers content, yeah, I guess it's an all right channel. What our buddy Evan said. Follow our show on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast. Best place to go for updates on the show. And, of course, Buccaneer news as it happens. Speaking of Bucs news as it happens, you can follow my co-host Evan on Instagram at Bucs_daily, the #1 Buccaneers fan page on Instagram. You can also find him on Twitter at EvanNFL. Last but not least, you can find myself, Instagram and Twitter at Retticus, RHETTAKUS. If you follow me, I will follow you back. That's the show. Hopefully the next time we talk to you guys, it'll be live after a Buccaneers win. Week 15, the biggest division game of the year for Tom Brady and the Bucs, a chance to crown themselves champions of the NFC South division. We should be in store for a great game. We will talk to you guys right here on YouTube live following that game. Win, lose, or draw, we will be live right here on the Cannon Fire Podcast YouTube channel. So subscribe if you have not already. Plenty of great Buccaneers content throughout the course of the season. So I'm going to wrap things up. I'm your host, Rhett Matthew, signing off from my co-host, Evan Wanish, and our very special guest, James Hill. We'll talk to you guys late Sunday night following the game. Until then, and as always, go Bucs.